that I'm blessed. It's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a check.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Today we have Darik Tolnay with us. He runs a group called the Tolnay Group underneath Cross Country Mortgage. He's a lender. He's a badass. He also has his own podcast called The Father Alchemist, which he'll definitely tell us about on here. But here he is.
Cool. Thanks, guys. And by the way, I love the name Unbuttoned. I think too many people out there are living a lie, and the truth is painful to people that are living a lie. You know, your ego protects you from shame and embarrassment. And so people who don't outwardly share, in my opinion, have the biggest ego of all. Right.
Yeah.
So the people without the ego put it all out there and say, perceive me as you will. And they don't really care about the shame and embarrassment. So I love the name. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. And Laura, the name was all you. And I love that because you were like, let's get people unbuttoned and opened up. So
yeah, for sure.
It's awesome.
I think that's only the way that we can connect in this world is if we're just open with each other, because we're all going through some shit. It's just, it's how we relate.
I think we tend to keep a lot of that stuff close to the vest because we're afraid that if we share that with somebody, they might judge us. I think, you can't really create connection with somebody unless you let them in and share something that you're vulnerable about. And oftentimes, like you said, somebody else is going through something. And I think that the world really needs to open up more because I think we can help a lot of people.
Yeah,
I agree. And Darik, I know you started a podcast as well. Congratulations.
Thank
so
you.
Can you talk about Father Alchemist and what inspired you to create the podcast and talk about what you do on there?
Yeah. I think where it came from originally was just as I started to look at social media, I found a lot of people were sharing all the flashy stuff, all the name brand stuff, the fast cars, the glamorous life. And, I like that stuff just like a lot of us do. But I think that the dark side to it is there are a lot of people that have lost hope. There are a lot of people out there that are struggling. There are a lot of people out there that that's not the life that they have. And so they tend to compare themselves with others. Teen suicide is up, depression is up, a lot of people with anxiety. And I just thought, hey, we've got to be willing to get people to be vulnerable and share about their personal stories so that it can create connection with others and give other people some hope about moving forward and doing something great with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and really the Alchemist. So I'm a father of 2 kids. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. The Alchemist is, I saw one of the questions, something that I think some people might be surprised to learn about me is I used to do magic professionally. And so one of the tricks I used to do was called the Alchemist. And alchemy is a term that's used to transmute a base metal into gold. And so I kind of think of alchemy or human alchemy as the same concept where anybody, I don't care who you are, what you've been through, what your past looks like, you have the ability to go from where you're at and do something incredible with your life. You were put here to do something special. And so alchemy or the Father Alchemist is really a show about helping people realize that about themselves or be inspired by somebody who has gone from maybe the depths of despair to doing something incredible or tapping into their full potential. So it's really a show about entrepreneurship and mental health.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Love it. How did you get into lending?
Good question. So I mentioned I used to do magic professionally. And then I was 19 years old. I was broke. I had just moved out of my mom's place into an apartment with a friend. And somebody said, hey, you might want to check out the car business. And she had a friend that was in the car business. So I went to go work at 19 in the car business for a couple of years. But I found that, and I was in sales, and this was in California, Galpin Ford. It was the largest Ford dealership in the world. I think it still is. They had like 4,500 cars on their lot. So you imagine somebody, and it's unlike Colorado. They're open Sunday. Somebody comes in at 9 o'clock at night, even though technically the dealership closes at that time. You might be showing somebody cars till 2 in the morning. So as I turned 21, 22, I started to realize that, I can't really create much of a life. And that was my opinion at the time. I couldn't really have a family. And so I knew I needed to do something different. But one of the managers that worked at that dealership left to go into the mortgage business. And then he started recruiting everybody. And they were talking about all this money that they were making. And, I thought I was doing pretty well at 22 years old. And, I was making some money. And I just thought, hey, if I could go into an industry where my perception at that time was banking was kind of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I didn't really think of it as a professional sales position or being an entrepreneur necessarily. So I got recruited into the mortgage business. I learned the business for about 6 months. I actually got fired from that job. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was in this apartment with my friend. How am I going to pay my bills? I think I had just bought a BMW. I was excited about the industry, but I ended up leaving and going and working for a broker shop, worked there for a couple of years, really learned every aspect of the business. So, when I started, it was just sales. It was just, how do I take a good loan application? Then I learned every aspect: appraisal, title, the whole process from start to finish. And then ultimately I ended up starting my own broker shop and did really, really well. And, I never really had a plan B. I dropped out of college when I was 19 years old. I went to a city college in California. And the reason I dropped out, by the way, was because I wanted to pursue magic. So you can imagine how my parents felt, right? Yeah. Like my mom's like, oh, great. So excited for you to pursue magic. Actually, my mom was always very negative. My dad was always very positive. He was very entrepreneurial. His comment when I told him was, well, Darik, you can do anything you put your mind to. My mom was like, how are you going to pay the bills? This is ridiculous. Your sister and your brother went to college. So middle child, kind of black sheep, and always did things a little bit different.
Yeah.
Where did your love for magic start?
I think like most kids, I was 5 or 6 years old. My parents got me one of those magic kits for Christmas, and I just devoured it, right? They could tell I was super interested in it. So next Christmas, they got me this really thick book, Mark Wilson's Encyclopedia of Magic. And I read that thing from start to finish. And I'm sure they were excited, but then it was like every Sunday I'm showing the whole family as many tricks as I possibly could, and it just grew from there.
Tickets to your family, having them in the living room.
Yeah, exactly.
Darik's fashion show is coming on in 5 minutes.
It's so funny. Yeah. So my husband actually does magic as well. So I think we need to bust out the magic.
I love it.
We'll get you together. And it's so funny. So when I first started dating my husband, I can't even remember when, but he's like, oh yeah, I do magic. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And so now the joke is we don't have any kids, but we're like, well, Stefan can come to the birthday party and he'll whip out some magic. But I think ultimately what he loves about it is the captivating people's attention and seeing the reaction from that. And I'm sure you can relate, Darik, from a child all the way up to he does these tricks on me and I'm like probably the dumbest person, but I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you do that?
Oh my gosh, I was blown away. He did it at Pam's son's birthday. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was the hit of the party. It was
I'm
amazing.
Sure it taught you, it's like not acting, but almost stage presence and confidence, which probably ultimately helped you in your career and in sales.
Yeah, I think that when you perform for anybody, I mean, let's face it, in the mortgage industry, real estate, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably speaking to audiences or you're at least doing one-on-ones. And in my opinion, if you're an entrepreneur or you're in this industry, you're really a performer. Right? Yeah. We all choose a different path, But if you look at a professional athlete, you look at a movie star or somebody on TV, these are all performers at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wish a lot more people would consider this industry in that way, because then they could perform at a higher level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree. It's when I teach my girls at the salon that, and being a hairstylist too, you're client facing, and I say the salon is like the stage. So the minute we open the doors, the lights turn on, the music, it's like show's going. So you have to put whatever, personal things are pulling you down or whatever struggles aside, because ultimately, the clients are there for the experience. And then at the end of the day, the lights go off, and then you can pick your bag of stuff that you left at the door and, continue on. But it is that stage, presence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at some of the most successful companies out there, they have taken the experience part of the process very, very seriously. I was at Lowe's yesterday. We were buying a few things for the house, and every time I go to that self checkout, I just get pissed off. Because I'm like, there's somebody just standing there.
Yeah.
And it's
Same.
I'm coming here to give you my money, and I've got to check myself out and bag everything. It's like, no, you've lost the level of experience that I think people appreciate. You look at like a Sephora versus a Neiman Marcus, right? Both have business models that work, but one you just walk into and you walk around and you find your thing. The other one, some people might enjoy having the latte and being pampered, or the scotch, or and everything's being showcased in a way, and I think the experience is what sells.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, totally.
Oh.
And then you ran a mortgage company in California, and then can you tell us what happened to that?
Yeah, and it's actually a big part of my story. It's a dark part of my story, but I think it's worth sharing. So let's see, I'm 25, 26. I've been in the industry for, 5 years at this point. It was me. I had two partners. It was kind of the wild, wild west. This is before the market crashed in 2008. Mortgage lenders could make upwards of 6 points or 6% on every transaction. Banks were really incentivizing different types of loan products. So there was one that some of your listeners might be familiar with. It was called the pay option arm. And what this was a loan where, let's say you're buying $1 million house. When your payment coupon would come in the mail, you had 4 options. You could either make a 15-year mortgage payment that was fully amortized. You could make a 30-year fully amortized payment. You could make an interest-only payment, or the fourth option was the 1% negative amortization payment. So if something's amortized for 30 years, you're going to have a certain payment. 15 years, the payment's going to be higher, right? Because you're paying it off sooner. Interest only is a little bit less than the 30-year. But when you go to that 1% negative amortization, what was happening is you were paying less than interest. So think about this, less than interest. So the remainder of that interest was being added to the balance of the loan. Now, fast forward to 2008, all of a sudden the economy collapses. There's more foreclosures than there have ever been. Real estate market goes bust. And people bought homes at that point with 0% down. They were paying less than interest. Now the market dropped in California, 20, 30, sometimes upwards of 40%. So you buy a house for $1 million, now all of a sudden it's worth $700,000. Your balance is higher than that, so you can't sell it.
Yeah.
Right? You're upside down. You owe the bank money if you sell it.
Yeah.
So when 2008 hit, I was in the mortgage business. I hung on for a little bit, and then I ended up going about $4 million into personal debt. I had about 8 rental properties. I foreclosed on everything. I was super unhealthy. I got addicted to painkillers, and I was just. I went through a divorce. And at about that time, my sister was living here in Colorado, and her husband said, "Hey, why don't you get out of LA and come and start fresh, start over in Colorado?" But this was a time where, they say some of the most stressful things you could go through are moving, divorce, transition and job. All of those things had happened, and I was broke. I had no money, and I'm, 26, 27 years old, and I'm hopeless. I don't know what to do. I didn't come from money, so it's not like I could borrow money from my parents. So at the time I was given cash for keys. So that was a period of time where, again, I'm upside down in my house. I can't really sell it. I don't have money. The banks aren't lending money, so I can't do loans. My business is out of business. And so an investor approached me and said, I'll give you, I think it was 20,000 or 30,000 for keys to the house. So I said, I'll take the 30 grand. Here's the keys. And I walked away. And that 30 grand is what I had to live on. As I transitioned out here to Colorado, I lived in Golden. I knew I had to get a job, so I went into security. For not like I wasn't a bouncer or anything, but I went into
that'd be great.
Yeah, like camera security for commercial buildings and physical like patrol security, and I was selling that service for about a year and a half, and I just go, what the hell am I doing? I hated what I did. I commuted from Golden to Aurora every single day. I had a 1972 Volvo that my mom gave me that was worth like $500. And I'm just going, fuck my life. This is not what I want. So I ended up ultimately getting relicensed in the mortgage business. And, I had to dig myself out of a hole and work really, really hard. And I had to repair my credit. And, thank God that opportunity was here for me. And I knew a couple people in the business out here, and just, I think that when we go through adversity, it's during those times that we really see what we're made of. And I would say to anybody listening that's going through a difficult time, there has to be an internal belief that you're capable of more and things will get better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then they will, because they always do.
Everything changes, right?
Yeah.
Nothing stays the same. And what I learned is the world is not as it is as you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people think that effort is what creates the result. Really, it's your frequency.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're in a negative headspace, when you're down and out, when everything that's going through your mind and coming out of your mouth is negative, that's what you're going to attract.
Yep.
So finding a way to reverse that and really put yourself in a state of gratitude, moving your body, moving your energy. You can't stay sedentary and just think magically things are going to get better. You have to put effort and action into it. But doing those things raises your frequency, and raising your frequency ultimately creates the result that you want.
Yeah. And I love how from this too, I mean, because you help so many people raise their credit. I mean, you're not just like, oh, great, get a loan with me. You really do start from the ground with a lot of people. You help them build their credit. And I love that, because you obviously have like true empathy for them, because you were there. Because you were driving your piece of shit Volvo.
Yeah.
And working in security, and, you've been there. So you can truly, truly empathize and relate to people like that and be like, hey, we can do this.
Yeah, like let's work together.
One foot in front of the other. Yeah.
I think, and you see it a lot right now because interest rates are so high, but there are a lot of people out there that I see that are waiting for the perfect time. Right? They're waiting for their credit to be perfect. They're waiting for them to have the perfect amount of cash in the bank. They're trying to orchestrate this perfect plan. And really simply put, in my opinion, imperfect action is the key. When I came out here and I was broke, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had to relearn the industry, because going from 2008 to 2011, it was a very different business, right? Regulations had changed. There were new laws in place. The process had become more cumbersome. But I just, to me, it was kind of like massive action. I didn't have a plan B. I just had to put my effort and energy out there. And I wish other people would consider that as their path as well.
Yeah.
And I like that, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, is your ego. You were humble, you were open-minded to say, you know what, I'm kind of at rock bottom, but I was out of the industry and I'm gonna be willing to learn to improve. And you didn't have an ego in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
once again, taking risks.
Yeah.
So important.
yeah. And I think, that changes, at least it's changed for me as I've gotten a little bit older. There's an awareness around that where it's like,
Sure.
man, I'm kind of thinking through things a little bit more than I really want to, right? Because I've always been the risk taker where I don't think about the consequences. I have something in my sights and I go for it. But
Yeah.
now with a family, it's like you got to be a little more calculated, but you're able to be more calculated because you've put in the work, for a decade. So what produces the result.
Yeah.
And really your success will never exceed the level of your personal development.
Yeah.
So some people, they have this idea of being successful, but they haven't done the footwork. They haven't worked on themselves, right? And so it's one of those things where, what you wish to acquire externally, you have to cultivate internally before you'll ever see it, right? If you don't dream of and I'm using this as an example, but if you don't dream of the mansion, or you don't dream of the Ferrari, or whatever it is that embodies success for you, maybe it's having a house in Europe, but if you never dream of that, if you never visualize that, you're never going to accomplish it, because you're going to be thinking about, the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and that's good enough. I think people need to dream bigger.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's what, drives us all to get there. I feel like a lot of people can just settle for, okay, well, great. Now I'm not, in the Volvo. Now I'm in a BMW. And then they just kind of stop there. Also, they're like, okay, I got the thing. So now I'm just going to ride this out for the next 15 years until I retire or whatever.
I think the key is like being happily dissatisfied with everything.
Yeah.
Right?
I like
My wife
that.
and I talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and I talk about this a lot. She's like, why can't you just be happy with what you have? And I'm like, you don't understand. I am happy with what I have, but there's an afterthought, which is, my plate's full. God make my plate bigger.
Right.
Right. So it's being happily dissatisfied with everything. Always knowing that there's a next level. At this party, I had a lot of people complimenting me on my house. And I said, there's always a next level.
Yeah.
There's always a next level. So
yeah, no, absolutely. It's extremely important. And I really always am trying to tell people to take risks. And I don't know if people understand what I'm saying when I say that, but it's just, don't give up, like kind of what we always say on here. And I feel like that is the biggest risk. Like Jessica, with that paint girl, she went through something like this, and she was like, I could have even sold it, but then she called me and I was like, well, just be really okay with somebody taking your idea that's amazing and your name that's amazing and making millions. So I said, if you're okay with that, then take the money. And she's now running it still herself.
Yeah. Killing.
She's like, you're the only one that said that to me, because everyone sees the shiny object, it was a lot of money and they take it, but it's like, but it could be so much more. And she totally, be growth minded, see how big you can take this.
Yes. And that's why I love podcasts like yours, Darik, and ours. And I hope that it is a platform for people that might not even be in a space, because you know what you know, right? You grow up and you kind of, if you're not necessarily small-minded, but you are raised in an environment and you know what you know until you start kind of exploring other avenues or listening to new things, learning new things, talking with people. And so that's our hope at the end of this. Like, I just want people to be inspired and grow, open your mind a little bit, ask questions, talk to people.
Yeah.
Back to the basics. Let's have conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who you surround yourself with is always so important too, that are growth minded and happy for you and always pushing for more.
They say your income is the average of the 5 closest people to you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Oh, yeah, I know. I
Oh,
haven't heard
can you
that one
repeat that,
either.
Darik?
Your income is the average of your 5 closest friends, or the 5 people you spend the most time with. I remember hearing that, and I thought, I got to get some new friends, you know, 'cause they were all broke, playing video games. And, you know, and I like what you said too, Kelly, because you're right. People know what they know, but also people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you get out of your comfort zone and go, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's something else, and how do I find out? And
Right.
developing a perspective. I think life is all about
Right.
perspective. I think, you know, Confucius said that that all people are the same except for their habits. I think habits are ultimately what can create that higher frequency, you know, but people have bad habits, right? We tend to get into habits that are defeating and that don't lead us to the result that we want. And it's easy to stay there because everybody else is doing the same thing,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? You've got 97% of America that are living, you know, they're on pharmaceuticals, they're eating like shit. I mean, have you gone into the grocery store lately? I mean, it's crazy.
Mhm.
I
It's
know.
crazy. You walk into a King Supers and it's like there's 40,000 boxes of cereal. You know, every aisle is sprinkled with candy and shit. It's just
I
all
know.
crap,
It's
right?
all crap. Yeah.
That's what Stefan said. He goes, I hate grocery shopping. And someone asked him why, and he goes, you walk in there and it's cluttered, and why do we need 4 rows of chips?
Yeah.
And I go, well, I love chips. No.
Yeah.
But we don't need 4 rows.
I'm like a fat kid that has to restrain himself a little bit.
Yeah.
So like I'm
Me
very
too.
good with framework. I'm very good with structure. Like if you give me a framework, I can stick to it, but I still like the idea of a cheat day.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Give me a cheat day so I
Right.
can go eat Taco Bell and I can go eat whatever sugar I want. But 6 days a week, I'll be on point.
Yeah. That's all about balance. Everything in moderation.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So we're going to do our popsicle, poopsicle, dreamsicle.
Okay, what's that? Say that
You're
again?
like, excuse me? So at the end of every podcast, we do popsicle, poopsicle, dreamsicle, which is
Okay.
popsicle, best thing that happened to you today or this week.
Okay.
Poopsicle, worst thing that happened to you today or this week. Dreamsicle, biggest dream.
Okay. So popsicle's the first one.
Yep.
Something great that happened to me today this week.
Yeah.
I would say the event that we hosted. That was probably the best thing that happened this week. It was, I think that we're all buried in our phones or our emails or it's ever since COVID, there's just sort of this like, it's become okay to not see each other as much, right? You don't have to go to the store to go shopping. You can order everything online. So I was just grateful to have some close friends there, people I hadn't seen in a long time, people that I'd seen recently, but just spending some personal time with people that I care about. It got me kind of choked up, and because it just made me realize that there's so many great people out there, and we have to be spending more time with these people. It's healthy. So that was probably the best thing that happened to me this week. Poopsicle. That's a tough one. I think my whole family's been really sick lately. My wife has had this just horrific cough, but it's like she's not sick. She just has this cough that won't go away. So that's been difficult. My son, we thought that maybe he had appendicitis this week.
Oh my
because he
gosh.
was it was a little scary. I'm not one to like rush to the doctor's office for every little thing. My wife, on the other hand, it's like, there's the most minor complaint. It's like, we got to go to the hospital now. I'm like,
there's one of those in every relationship. Because I'm like you, and Peter's the opposite. So now I'm like, yeah.
But his stomach was hurting, and then it had been hurting for a second, a third, a fourth day. We started doing tests on him. Of course, she gets on Google. She thinks it's appendicitis. She's about to rush him to the emergency room because he would wake up at like 2 a.m. just in excruciating pain. We'd have to rub his stomach. Right?
Yeah.
So instead of rushing into the emergency room. I'm like, can we just wait like 6 hours maybe so that he can go to the doctor and we don't spend $5,000 on the emergency room?
Yeah.
But so that's the decision I made. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what if it is appendicitis?
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So that was a little sketchy. Turned out he just hadn't pooped in a few
Yeah.
days. So
We did the same thing for Charlotte, and she was at the emergency room.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlotte was at the ER till 3:00 in the morning, and she had to poop. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Well, it is called poopsicle, right?
Yeah,
that literally.
We'll talk about it. And then dreamsicle, we've really been dreaming about a beach house.
Oh, amazing.
I'm from Southern California. I grew up surfing. A lot of people come here that love Colorado. I'll be honest, I'd rather than driving 2 or 3 hours to steamboats or to go skiing, I'd rather hop on a plane, go down to Mexico and go surfing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we've got a date before the end of the year set up where we'll talk about our vision for the marriage, vision for our family, vision for, the dream items, right? Like the beach house, but I guess that's my dreamsicle.
I love that.
We're going to get that beach house and we're
Yes,
going to
you
come
will.
visit.
I know.
Yes.
You guys will come. We'll party.
Maybe we'll be neighbors. Peter's been bringing up California a little bit too. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like,
really? Okay,
oh, geez. But I'm, yeah.
You're a mountain girl.
I know. I'm like, I'm getting rocked here moving to Scottsdale. So, yeah. But I'm like, I think I'd be great if I was near a beach. I just have to, it has to be beach or mountains.
That's we're
Yes,
learning.
we're opening our minds. Exactly.
And I'm going to open
Desert
my mind
first,
with the
I
mountains
guess.
and go
Yes.
hiking. See?
We're going to do it together.
We'll do
It'll
it
be fun.
together.
Well, thank you so much, Darik. You are lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for all of the lessons. I think that people will take
Mhm.
away a lot from this one. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for having me on. People can find me at The Father Alchemist on Instagram, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, The Father Alchemist podcast. Thanks for having me on, you guys. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Every time that I see a limit, I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck, nah, I had to plan it. The way I work is out of this earth. I can feel the momentum. Need it all, no fractions. Dream it, then I gotta have it in the booth like Tom Cruise. Whole lot of